Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Debleaire Snell.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, and of course, I am happy to be here on this Monday with my brothers.
Come on.
Pastor Debleaire Snell, speaker-director of Breath of Life, senior pastor of the Oakwood University Church.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And also Pastor Kirk Nugent, the media pastor at Oakwood, and the media guru for Breath of Life.
Indeed.
And we're going to get into now, in this ongoing conversation we've been having about our Christian identity, our identity as Christians.
This is powerful. This has been powerful. This
juicy conversation. Very, very, very rich and very meaningful, I think. And hopefully our viewers and our listeners feel the same way. We're now going to get into something that is familiar territory.
Yeah.
You know, at least based on the name of our denomination.
Yeah,
right?
correct. That's right.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the Adventist part is, I guess, where we're kind of going to linger a little bit today, because the implication there is the last days.
Last days.
So we want to get into that conversation. The last days and what some people, what theologians call eschatology. As Seventh-day Adventists, the dilemma is, let's just deal with the elephant in the room.
Right.
The dilemma is that we say, and have been saying, since our beginning as a denomination, over 150 years ago, we've been saying that the coming of Jesus Christ, the return of Jesus Christ, is imminent. Imminent. We've been saying it's going to happen any day now.
Any day now.
And 150 years have passed.
Mercy.
And Jesus isn't here. Now, let's even go a step further and say, we're not alone in this.
We're not alone in it.
The Bible also, the New Testament is written in such a way where it's pretty clear that the apostles thought
they sure did.
that Jesus was coming in their lifetime.
Yep.
And that was 2,000 years ago.
My.
And Jesus isn't here. Which is why I think some people say, even question the legitimacy, not just of this idea that Jesus is coming back, but that there was a Jesus at all. So how do we wrestle with this idea of still being a church, a denomination, a set of believers who embraces the idea of the imminent return of Jesus, but knowing that the use of the word imminent or the soon return or the last days it doesn't seem to fit in the context of what people would normally think that it would fit in.
So I think there are a couple things that come to mind, and there's no perfect, I guess, resolution in this 20 minutes we're going to have. But I think one is understanding the purpose of this perceived delay. Right? So in the book of 1 Peter, he says, man, in the last days, scoffers will come, saying, where is this coming of the Lord? For all things continue as they did since creation. Then he says, but God is not slack concerning his promises, as some men count slackness.
Mercy. But
he is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So I think, like, Peter kind of gives us a tremendous prophetic insight, because, again, there is this urgency of, man, Jesus is coming. But, you know, I think he essentially kind of says a part of that delay is God's long-suffering with humanity, giving everybody as long as they possibly can. I'm going to leave this door of probation open as long as I can, so that as many that can be gathered unto the side of righteousness can possibly have that happen. So I think, one, that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, I'm glad he didn't come 25 years ago.
Come on, Doc.
Might not have made it. So I'm grateful for the delay, right? So
it comes back to that grace conversation that we had, a few episodes back. But that grace piece is part of the delay.
Right?
In not wanting that any should perish.
Right?
Yeah. I love that.
And I think the other thing is maybe kind of a misunderstanding of a few statements or words in Scripture.
Okay.
I think add to that sense of, I won't say an urgency. I think it creates a false narrative. So like even when in I think Revelation 1 when Jesus says, "Behold, I come quickly," right? So that word "quickly" it's not really talking about chronology and how long. But when he says, "Behold, I come quickly," it actually means suddenly.
Suddenly.
So like when I come, it's going to be sudden. It's going to appear as if without notice to many. But it wasn't saying like, all right, I'm going to run to this store and I'm going to be back real quick. I think it's just saying when I get back, it's going to happen with such a suddenness that it will be a surprise to a good portion and a good part of the world. So I do think that there are just the interpretation of some words and some language kind of feed into that narrative that had us believing that, all right, right now, because like even Jesus said, like, he's like in Matthew 24, this gospel of the kingdom has to be preached to all the world for a witness, and then shall the end come. Yeah. So I think that, even in a space where we know, I don't know how much the apostles, their perception of what the whole world looked like.
Right.
So that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. But the gospel has to go to every country, every mountain, every valley, before the end can come. And so I think that's a big part of it, in addition to that. But I think that those are a couple things I want to just throw out there that have kind of fed into that narrative that's created disappointment for some. Yeah. But I think that if we look at what Peter said, like, no, Jesus said, I'm going to give everybody a chance. Yeah. And Matthew 24, the gospel has to go to the entire world. And I do think that there are certain things that have happened in our world that should have created, I guess, an awareness. They should wake us up. Yeah. But I don't know if they necessarily indicated that it's right here at the door.
There's a song, an old Andre Crouch song, says, if heaven never was promised to me, and then it goes on, and then it resolves itself by saying, but it was still worth having the Lord in my life. Yeah, yeah. Right? Yep. So I wonder if there's really value, and I'm asking this in the context of this question today, is there really value in focusing intensely on the when as opposed to the how, right? The experience of having God in our lives, so that we don't really worry about when God is coming back, when Jesus is coming back.
Yeah. So, I do think, so that's a really good question. And I love kind of the sentiment of that song, because there is a certain personality. They kind of want to have this prophetic timeline. Yeah. So they can walk in righteousness just long enough so that they're right when Jesus comes. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And see, what happens is that kind of person, they consistently fall away the longer time continues, because it's not necessarily about, for them, relationship with God. Right. It is almost exclusively about just being in position to receive the reward. But like that person that's just trying to be right in time for the reward, they're going to miss it anyway.
This is so good,
because it is all rooted in relationship. Right. And so I think that even when we talk about being ready for the coming of the Lord, I think it's important, because I think it informs our ability to help clarify to the larger culture what's happening and why certain things are coming to pass. And I think it gives credibility to the validity of Scripture when we can say, this is what this means, and this is where we should be looking as a result. But in terms of it informing my personal readiness, I should be walking in intimacy with God in such a way that every day that the when becomes inconsequential, because it's the what or the who that drives my daily interactions and my moral compass, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. In fact, and this is where having kids and having to explain some of these concepts to kids in a way that's simple sometimes is more beneficial for us as the adult. Because in that conversation with my kids, we talked about going to grandma and grandpa's house. Yeah. And why do you like going to because you love grandma and grandpa,
right?
Because you have a relationship with grandma and grandpa, because you maybe FaceTime them from time to time, because grandma and grandpa want to see the best for you, and they're constantly checking in to ensure that things are going well, sending you things, making sure you have what you need. So when you have that reunion with grandma and grandpa, it's blessed. That's something you look forward to.
Yeah.
If we don't have the relationship, the second coming is not something to look forward to.
Right.
It's not even something you're trying to figure out when it's gonna be. You really are more or less trying to figure out, like, how much time do I have?
Yeah.
And I think that component of it is sometimes missed when we talk about the concept or the conversation around second coming, Christ's soon return. What is our posture towards it? Are we going to receive him in peace? Are we looking forward to it? Have you been building a relationship independent of all the other constructs that we have in Christendom? Are you building a relationship? Is this person, is this God that's coming back is somebody that you have been waiting for, and you're excited to see him face to face?
Right.
Or what does that experience look like for you? So I think that as you shared, it really brings that thing full circle.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, though, just, even in the light of the skepticism about it, Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man, where men were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark, and they do it not until the flood came and swept them all away. And so, so you look at it when he's saying, people eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, those are not bad things.
No.
I think what Jesus is that people are just going to be so busy living life that they're not going to, that they will be oblivious to obvious signs that things are changing.
Yeah.
So that, honestly, I don't know. You would kind of think if you just see animals moving into an ark 2 by 2, unherded, unchained,
Right.
like that kind of says something is happening.
Predators and prey.
Predators and prey, without in concert one with another.
That's
or even one writer I love talks about how even everything else in creation took note and how animals automatically began to go to higher ground and things like that. But at the end of the day, like Noah preached for over 100 years that this was going to happen.
Mercy.
And everything just kept happening like it always happened until that first drop fell from the sky.
That's it.
So I do think that we have to kind of maintain this awareness, that this life as we know it is going to one day come to a close. So what it does, and this is why I think it's important, because it informs what we should prioritize, not like my daily afraid posture. But I think it says, you know what? I'm not going to spend my whole life chasing cars, houses, things that ultimately that may or may not even outlive me. So I think what it does is it informs what matters, what doesn't, what's important, what's not, and where I'm going to make my investments. Am I going to make all my investments in things that rust, rot, or go out of style?
Mercy.
Or am I going to make my investment in the things of heaven where thieves don't break in and steal and moth does not corrupt? Right. So I think as opposed to like it determining my everyday behaviors, I think it determines more of my worldview, my values, and my priorities.
Is that word soon, though? Or that word that implies the urgency, is that really necessary?
That word soon.
I mean, isn't it possible that we can convey and receive the same importance without that word soon?
Yeah. And I ain't gonna lie, because it feels almost heretical to say this. But I guess a little bit more of my focus is not so much on the soonness of Christ. It's on the certainty of his return. Because let's just say if Jesus comes from 5 years from now, I don't know, depending on how you deem that, that's not soon. You know what I'm saying? Or 10 years from now. I mean, it is soon, but it's not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow, right.
In the way we reconcile time. Right. I guess that's what, because to God, 1,000 years is like a day.
It was soon
to us.
It was still soon to him.
Yeah.
And the question I wanted to pose there is I forget exactly how long Noah preached, because it was a long time.
Yeah.
Years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for those who are around Noah, they really came to that conclusion of, bruh, you're kind of off on this one.
Yeah.
And I think we are very much in that same space now. Very much in that same space now. But I think what you shared is absolutely powerful.
But like
how you wait is just as important as the fact that you're waiting.
That you're waiting. Because I'm trying to think, did Jesus even say to his disciples, I'm coming soon, I'm gonna be back soon? So like look at there are certain parables.
That's a really good question.
That illustrated the second coming. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the talents. And he is represented by a man. Remember, before he leaves, he distributes talents. 1, 5, another one 2, another one 1.
Right.
And then the Bible says that he goes on a long journey, and he's gone a long time. And like he is the one that represents Christ in the story, or even the story of the parable of the foolish virgins.
Yeah.
What happens is the bridegroom tarries.
It's like
so much so that that they're all 10 fall asleep.
Everyone fell asleep.
Right.
There's
so like
good. That's good.
These parables that actually are designed to illustrate his coming and his return, they actually picture a bridegroom that tarries or takes a long time to come and receive the bride, or this owner of the property that goes on a long journey and stays gone a long time.
Mercy.
And so that's why I'm kind of wondering, like, is that something that is true to the narrative of Jesus himself?
Yeah. Well, maybe not to Jesus himself, but in Revelation chapter 22, the prophet John speaking, I guess, I don't know if you want to say on behalf of Jesus or speaking based on a vision he had of Jesus, seems to be quoting Jesus and saying, "Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be." Yeah. This is the King James Version.
Yeah. And so that's what we were talking about earlier, that term quickly. I don't think it speaks so much to like soonness. I think it means a little bit more, behold, I come suddenly.
So how did that happen? How did that when I say how did that happen, I guess it's I'm going to call it a mistranslation. I don't know. Would you call it that?
Oh yeah, just a poor translation.
Poor translation
in the King James. Yeah.
You're saying that I'm hearing that, I receive that, but I got to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's the first time I think I've ever heard that.
Wow.
Really? Okay.
That I've ever heard anybody characterize it as not quickly, but suddenly, at least that I can recall.
Yeah. Yeah, the Greek word at the moment is escaping my mind, but yeah, I think that's a truer interpretation of that particular statement. And I think it aligns and allows us to reconcile a little bit more easily with what has actually happened. And I think, again, especially when we put it in the context of, say, Matthew 24. So Jesus says to his disciples, they ask him like, all right, Lord, what's the sign of your coming and the end of the age? So Jesus is like, all right, it's going to be wars or rumors of wars and pestilence and famines and earthquakes in diverse places. And we were talking about this in another context. He says all these are the beginning of sorrows, or that word sorrows. It doesn't just mean sadness. It's the Greek word odin. It actually means contractions or birth pains.
That's right.
Like the way Jesus says, okay, I want you to kind of look at it in the context of human childbirth. So he says, all right, because see, that's where the skeptics of First Peter are going to come and say, well, we've been having earthquakes and famines and COVID and Ebola and SARS and tornadoes and all this stuff since the beginning. But what Jesus is saying is like, no, the way you know a baby is about to be born is when the contractions get closer together and when they happen with more power. And I think that what we can look at is say like there are actually studies even on like how many earthquakes happen per century. And it's funny because like, man, the number of earthquakes are happening with greater frequency. Like because the contractions are getting closer and closer together. Like, I mean, honestly, even look at something in our time like mass shootings. Like that wasn't even a thing.
Not at all.
50 years ago. But like now, those contractions just come back to back to back to back to back to back. You know what I'm saying? Even if you say like COVID in a vacuum, but like then this other variation, iteration, then bird flu, swine, all these, So I think that there are enough things that are happening in our world where you see the contractions getting closer and closer together, or happening with more power, or even just kind of see, like there was a time where like wars started and ended. But now we're just always at war. Yeah. It's always a cyber war or a biological war. Like terrorism. It's just unending. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying is, I think that all of those things kind of say to us like that we are moving toward the end of this life and the ushering in of the coming of the Lord, because these contractions are getting closer together. And they're happening with more power and frequency.
Wow.
And I think that all of those things, in my mind, they validate all of the claims that Jesus made before he left this earth. And I think it gives us a little bit more of an accurate metric or barometer on how to gauge and govern not just our behavior, but our priorities and our values in light of where we are.
Yeah.
All right.
Man, that's good.
That is a good place to end this conversation. Mm-hmm. Powerful.
Absolutely
powerful.
And
one that's especially necessary, I think, for our community.
Our community.
Indeed. So, Pastor Snell, thank you for that.
And can I say this? What we have to avoid, though, is we have to avoid, I think we can preach with urgency and fervor and hope. The coming of the Lord. But I think what you have to avoid is being an alarmist or a false prophet. Because remember, we all remember the story of the boy who cried wolf.
Well, yes, we do. Yes, we
you know what I'm saying? Like, you can only cry wolf so many times before your audience stops responding or they stop listening.
Absolutely.
And see, there's some, I ain't gonna lie, it kind of grates on me that there's some who use, I think, so we're a certain age. Remember Y2K?
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it.
September 11th. That was it. COVID. That was it. You know what I'm saying? Or Trump. That was it. Or for some, it was Obama.
For some, it was Obama. You're right.
Or even Biden, a Catholic president.
Very
you know
true.
What I'm saying? But I think all of these things, I'm not saying that they are insignificant in a vacuum, because I think, even say the September 11th and the Patriot Act and the way we process information and privacies and liberties, I think it was a part of it. But I think this right now, this is it. Because I think some just kind of say, if I guess long enough, I'll get it right.
One of these times, I'm going to get it right.
But actually what you do is you actually numb the audience you're speaking to. And we got to be, kind of accurate. We got to have an accurate prophetic voice.
That's good.
So that we play the trumpet with a certain sound when the times require it.
That's good.
All right.
That's good.
For Pastor Debleaire Snell, a trumpet player now.
No.
And Pastor Kirk Nugent, I'm David Person. God bless you. Don't forget that life gets tough, but you can stop, pray, and breathe. All right.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debleaire Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.